Stark is a really powerful damage dealer thanks to his buffs and can also deal lots of break damage. So then because Stark's primary focus is actually to deal damage, it does mean that when it comes to his best artifact build, we're going to be using the 4-set effect of the armed artifact set, as well as also pairing it with outstanding ability as well. And the main reason we are going to be using the armed set for Stark is because a lot of his damage does come from stacking a huge amount of defense penetration, so with armed also allowing you to basically say, when attacking, the user can ignore 18% of the target's defense. It does make them work very, very nicely together. But of course, when it does then come to outstanding ability, it's pretty obvious why we're running this, because it can give you a 60% damage increase when you are above 40% of your maximum mana points, and with Stark being very, very similar to Yuki, he doesn't really use much mana, so this is also very, very perfect for him. However, you can also use the 8-set effect of Chaotic Desire for lots of total power and also very good amounts of damage at the same time. Following that, we now need to talk about all of your Stark's best artifact main stats, and when it comes to his helmet, his necklace, and also his ring, you'll want to go for additional HP because he is a HP scaler. And as always, you can still go for HP percent if it is your only option. But when it comes to the final two most important artifact main stats, these are going to be your bracelet and also your boots. And starting off with your boot main stat, you'll of course want to go for defense penetration because, like I just said before, he does scale a lot off of defense pen. Then as for your bracelet, you'll want to go for fire damage percent because he is of the fire element as well. Your artifact substats are up next, and the three most important substats for Stark are going to be defense penetration, HP, and also HP percent. You'll of course want to go for stuff like crit rate, getting that to 50% with some surplus, as well as crit damage. If you can get that to close to around 200%, that'll be very, very good. And finally, stuff like damage increase as well is going to be very, very good. For all of your Stark's very best cores, he does actually have a lot of different options that you can go for, especially when it does come to his mind piece. But overall, in my opinion, I think the best mind piece option that you can go for is going to be the Eyes of the Watcher for the increase into your critical hit damage of your core attacks by up to 20%. And when we further look at his skill rotations, you'll realize he does use a lot of them. And after that, we have your body piece. And when it comes to this, it really doesn't matter which one you go for, so just prioritize better stats over the better core. But in total, you probably just could go for something like the Ancient Wraith's right hand for some extra damage reduction. But finally, for your spirit piece, you do actually have a couple very good options that you could go for. However, I do definitely still think that just going for Teeth of the Watcher is going to be the best thing for you to choose, simply because of its 12% reduction into your skill MP consumption, and that's pretty much it. So then when it does come to all of your Stark's main and also substats for all of his core pieces, let's start off by talking about his main stats. And just like always, you'll definitely want to go for additional attack, defense, and HP for the biggest stat and also power increase. But as for his substats, this is going to be a lot different to other hunters because you just want to go for defense penetration on every single core that he does have. Now let's move on to all of your Stark's advancements and what they do. And starting off with his first advancement, which can say when Whirling Strike does hit an enemy, you can inflict the Warrior's Aura effect onto that said enemy, with this basically just being a debuff that increases damage taken from Stark by 15%, but it also does further enhance the Determination buff that he can apply with his kit that can now increase his basic skill damage by 15%, as well as also his critical hit rate by 15%, all for 10 seconds. Onto his A2 though, this is pretty simple because it's just a 15% HP increase, but that's still pretty damn good. Then after that we have his A3, and this can basically further enhance his Warrior's Aura debuff to now increase the damage taken from Stark by 30% for 15 seconds. And as well, it says the entire team's defense penetration can increase equal to 20% of your Stark's extra base defense penetration, which is also why we do want to stack as much defense pen on him as possible. For the fourth advancement though, when it comes to Stark, it will basically increase his break effectiveness by 36%. And then finally for his A5, the confidence and courage buffs are now enhanced, where basically with courage you can now increase your fire damage by 30%, as well as also your defense pen by 30%, and you can even now increase your ultimate skill damage by 50% as well for 5 seconds, so it'll give your Stark a huge amount of damage. And not to forget, it does also have a huge amount of quality of life, because using his first basic skill can now activate the Determination effect, as well as also when Stark does use his core attack and second basic skill, he can now decrease the cooldown of his ultimate skill by 4 seconds, allowing him to get it within every rotation, making it a very, very powerful advancement overall. Oh yeah, and finally with Warrior's Talent, which he activates through his second basic skill, this can help him deal damage equal to 1000% of his maximum HP. When it does come to your Stark's skill level priority, he does have many good ones. However, in my opinion, the most important skill for you to level up is going to be his second basic skill, Lightning Strike, because this is basically his main source of damage. This is due to the fact that this skill can actually be used up to 3 times in succession, with each new stage also having higher amounts of damage than the previous one. So being able to increase this skill's damage multiplier to 1179% of his maximum HP as damage is going to be very, very important. But for the final 2 skills for you to level up, the first one is going going to be Whirling Strike your core attack, because whenever you do use a basic skill, you can actually activate your core attack, making this skill also a very, very good source of damage for Stark. And then finally as well, we do have his ultimate skill, Lightning Strike Annihilation, and this is something that he can use within every rotation and is also another very, very good source of damage for him. So it will be very, very important that you do increase this skill's damage to be as high as possible. Moving on, we now have your Stark's very, very best team, and because we are going to be using him as a main DPS, it does mean that for your main support, we are going to still be using Gina, but when it does come to your other hunter in your team, you can use Yuki as another very, very good source of break damage and also buffs and debuffs. And some very good examples of this is going to be Yuki's breakdown debuff, which can increase the enemy's damage taken by 20%, as well as also their fire damage taken by 25% for half a minute, so this will benefit your Stark's damage a huge amount. But as well, the Afterglow buff that Yuki can apply to your whole team is also very, very good with Stark, because it increases your damage dealt to targets in the break state by 12%, and can also increase their basic and also ultimate skill damage by 30%, and further can increase your whole entire team's critical hit damage by 20% for 30 seconds, making it very, very powerful. Then finally, what makes Yuki very, very good in this team is also her good amount of damage that she can deal, because with her using lots of skills, core attacks, and even her ultimate skill, she can do a high amount of damage alongside Stark as well. Then moving on to Gina, and the most important things that she's going to provide to this team is going to be stuff like mana circulation, which can increase your fire damage by 15%. She can also provide shields and also damage increases through mana transformation and her A2. And finally, we have stuff like gravity boost, increasing damage, as well as also her A4, increasing your whole entire team's defense penetration. For all of your best shadows to use with Stark, the best shadow authority leader by far that you can use is going to be Bestie for her 8% increase to defense penetration, but also the Ice Predator buff that she can apply to everyone that can further increase it again by another 10%. Then as for the two supportive shadows, my personal recommendations would be going for Serby the Cerberus for his combustion debuff, as well as also Beru for his healing that he can apply, and even his punishment debuff. Alright, let's finally talk about how you can best use your Stark to get the most out of his kit. So for his skill rotation, just like always, you'll want to bring him in with his QTE skill, followed up by his first basic skill, so you can activate the Determination buff. And what this will basically do is it will allow him to activate his core attack for the first time, and this will be the second skill that you use in his rotation. But for the final part of his rotation, what you want to then do is use his second basic skill into his core attack, and you want to repeat that 2 more times after the first time you do it, meaning once you have repeated that sequence of using his second basic skill into his core attack, it will then allow you to get your ultimate, which will be the final skill in your rotation for Stark, as well as the exact moment you then want to bring in Yuki to apply her buffs and debuffs, followed by Gina, who will do the exact same thing whilst also applying shields. So there you have it. That is my complete build guide for Stark in solo leveling Arise, and I definitely think it's safe to say he's a very, very good damage dealer who can also do lots and lots of break damage. But overall, if you did enjoy this video or you just found it useful in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, I will see you all in the next video. Peace!